Hey everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the IOTA Evangelist Network broadcast. This was originally meant to be live in person, but that's of course impossible today and during the corona crisis that everyone is experiencing. For me, this is a very special event to be able to host two prominent community members and watch their presentations. Usually I'm on the opposite side of this equation. Usually I'm the one answering questions and being presented. This time I will get the chance to ask questions and hopefully get some interesting answers out of these two people. So it's probably no surprise to the people watching this that the two participants today is Terry Shane and Ben Royce, who are both long-term community members of the IOTA project. They've played a pivotal role in the community for years now, and I'm extremely honored to be able to introduce them. And as I mentioned earlier, due to the coronavirus, given that Ben Royce is in Rochester, New York, and Terry Shane is in Toronto, Ontario in Canada, they are both on opposite sides of the Lake Ontario. And so they decided to meet in the middle. So they got a sailboat.
Two sailboats.
Yeah, two sailboats. Whatever.
Yeah, well, the border was closed. It was the only way we could get together.
This is the way to do it. This is living.
Yeah, absolutely. David, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your joining us and hosting today's event. Very excited.
Thank you, David.
So what now? You need a drink there, Ben? I got a coffee I can get over to you. Anyway.
Thank you.
All right. So, David, you want to start with some introductions?
Yeah.
You're on.
Okay, I'm on. Just how bad I am at presentations. So
that's okay.
Or hosting. Okay. Anyways, so today we have two extremely interesting topics that is very dear to my heart, but also to the ethos of the IOTA project since inception. One of them touches upon the environmental footprint that mankind leaves, and the other one is more related to the data economy, but also how freedom of data actually pertains to social media and our ownership, or the lack of ownership, I should say, in the status quo of social media today. Two very interesting topics, and I'm extremely excited to have both Terry and Ben present their different solutions to these two different respective topics. So I'm excited. Like I'm just waiting to get blown away.
Well, let's do that.
Let's do it. So Terry, go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. So hang on, let me just switch my screen here. So thanks, David. Hello to everyone joining us today for the live stream event or watching the recording later. And for those of you who've watched some of my earlier Biotosphere videos, you know how passionate I am about DLTs in general and IOTA in particular. So today, building on my popular 100 billion reasons why video, I thought I'd up the ante with 600 billion reasons why, because hey, never hurts to have an extra 500 billion reasons to believe in a better future. So a couple of years ago, I was enjoying my morning venti vanilla latte in a neighborhood coffee shop where they had a round recycling bin near the back of the store with 3 openings. One for paper cups without the lids, one for cans, glass and plastic, and the last one was for other paper. Though newer versions replace this with an opening for compost. Perhaps you've seen them. Customers were clearly being invited to participate in the recycling process. After all, the cup I was holding was made of paper, and the lid on top was white plastic with those 3 well-known arrows. The cardboard sleeve also had a recycling logo clearly printed on the side. It all made sense until I looked more closely. There were 3 openings in the lid of the bin, but there was only 1 plastic bag inside. The recycling initiative was an illusion. So I asked to speak to the manager, and she confided in me that at their location, the property manager did not provide any recycling options, and in fact, all of the cups were thrown in the garbage and ended up in landfill. And that got me thinking about a problem that I've seen reproduced from Toronto to Tokyo, from New York to New South Wales. Single-use, hot and cold beverage cups made from high-quality, long fiber paper that are tossed away by the billions, typically within 15 minutes of being sold with a latte, a London fog, or a soda fountain cola drink. It's a problem of epic proportions, and it's emblematic of how we need to change consumer behavior and shift responsibility for cleaning up the mess we're all collectively making. I've spent much of the last year researching this industry, looking for answers to what appears on the surface to be an easy problem to solve, but in reality, it's a complex ecosystem problem that involves many different players, as we'll see in a moment. But this project is tailor-made for a permissionless, decentralized DLT that supports feeless micropayments and data transfers. The market potential is simply massive. But before we can talk about distributed ledgers, we have to understand the core business issues that perpetuate the problem and prevent existing technology from addressing it. As Greta Thunberg has so elegantly pointed out to the discomfort of many politicians and business leaders, we can no longer save the planet by playing by the old rules. This is a problem that requires changes in existing infrastructure, but also at the individual, municipal, commercial, and industrial levels, because you can't have one without the other. So while we're having conversations with many of the major players in this space, we still have a long way to go. We are, however, making steady progress to be the force for the change we'd all like to see in the world. So what's the deal with single-use paper cups? Well, to start with, most paper cups are coated with a thin plastic lining that prevents the contents from leaking out onto your lap. In the case of cold drink cups, they're double-coated with a plastic film on the outside too to stop the paper getting wet from condensation. This makes them difficult to recycle. But the technology to do it already exists, and it just doesn't get used that much. For example, in the UK, they have the technical capacity to recycle every single cup that's produced, but this capacity is rarely used. Here in North America, we have capacity too. It just doesn't make financial sense to use it for cups most of the time. Now, I'm sure you've heard of advances in compostable cups and biodegradable cups, but just like the recycling bins in my story earlier, the fact that a cup is technically recyclable or compostable has very little to do whether it still ultimately ends up in landfill. There are currently many impediments to an item being properly recycled, and they can vary from one city block to the next. Reusable and returnable cups sound good on the surface, but they too come with a host of different issues. For one, the energy cost to produce, clean, and reprocess a reusable cup often exceeds the carbon footprint of the new single-use paper cups it replaces, and all of the major retailers prohibited the use of reusables when the COVID crisis hit, so reusables are quite literally off the table for the near future. One thing is clear. Any solution to this problem will require greater focus on extended producer responsibility so that those who produce these waste items pay to clean up the mess. But we also need viable and profitable markets for cup fiber, because without reliable demand for used cup stock, it simply makes more economic sense to dump this material in landfill, and that hurts all of us. Our solution inverts existing logic by focusing first on the far end of the cup life cycle, and in the process, we create an incredibly lucrative market in which everyone in the ecosystem wins. Distributed ledger and digital currency make the entire solution possible, and of course, IOTA makes it viable. So perhaps it'll help to get a sense of the size of the problem. 600 billion single-use cups are manufactured every year, and while 100% of them can technically be recycled, over 99% of them end up in landfill. Let's just put that in perspective for a moment. It's about 6.6 million tons of cups each and every year. If you put them end to end, the pile would reach 50 million miles, enough to circle the equator 2,000 times, or reach to the moon and back 100 times, or even to reach Mars. Compress and compact them all you can, and the huge pile would still stretch 2.5 miles from the United States Capitol building, along the National Mall, past the Smithsonian and the reflecting pool to the Lincoln Memorial. From the Washington Monument, it would sweep up to and beyond the White House, past Pennsylvania Avenue and Lafayette Square, to the steps of St. John's, the Church of the Presidents. Now imagine this vast area rising over 100 feet tall, higher than the American flag that flies above the White House, and you'll appreciate that this is a big problem, but it's one worth solving. Governments are looking to use mandatory cup charges, sometimes known as latte levies, to disincentivize consumers from using paper cups, but the fees won't change behavior or get more cups recycled, though they might make your morning cup of Java more expensive, and almost none of that money will go to reducing the number of cups that end up in landfill. Now, I've shown some recent examples on this slide, but these programs are likely to fail in the long run because they do nothing to change consumer recycling behavior. If you've ever stood in the line waiting to buy a coffee at a retail chain in the morning, you already know that the increased cost will quickly become the new normal. Nothing much else in the system will change. So, let's examine for a moment why cup recycling doesn't work today. It's an ecosystem problem with multiple players, but these players don't really work together and their economic incentives are not aligned. From cup manufacturers to coffee shops, waste collectors and waste aggregators to pulp and paper mills, consumers to municipalities, each has a different challenge. It all starts with the cup. Today, it actually costs more to make cups with recycled fiber than it does to use new virgin fiber. Most retailers won't pay more for cups with recycled content, as it hurts their bottom line. It's that simple. Now, technically, you can make cups with 40% or more recycled fiber in them without impacting their structural integrity, but none of the big chains would buy them, so instead we keep cutting down trees. We won't see more recycled content in cups unless we can find ways to make them cheaper than cups made with virgin fiber. Money, sadly, talks. For the retailer, cups are simply a cost of doing business, so unless being eco-friendly is part of their brand image, they will always buy the cheapest cups available. Starbucks uses 10% post-consumer recycled fiber in their cups, but they're the exception rather than the rule. But even when the cups are collected within the store, if that store is in a shopping mall or office building, their garbage collection and waste removal is typically handled by their property manager, so the disposal is often someone else's problem. Then we have the consumer. Hey, that's me with my large vanilla latte. Now, 80% of cups are taken to go, and that number is only going to rise after COVID-19. So the burden of recycling the cup usually falls to the consumer. And since cups are typically disposed of within 15 to 30 minutes of purchase, the bulk of the problem has to be dealt with outside of the store where the drink was sold. Can your cup be recycled? Sometimes it seems like you need an environmental science degree to know. The cup says it can be recycled, but your municipality won't accept paper cups in their blue bin program. The recycling bin in one shopping mall says it takes paper cups, but another a block away says no cups. But look inside any of those bins, and you see something of everything. There's garbage in the recycling bin, recycling in the garbage bin. It's probably all destined for landfill because cross-contamination makes it all worthless. We're confused, we're lazy, but mostly we're in a hurry. So we dump everything in the nearest receptacle, cup, lid, and the contents too, the cold coffee dregs, the banana peel, perhaps the napkin and the muffin liner with the last bite of muffin, maybe a piece of gum for good luck. With no incentive or consistent recycling protocol, cups almost always end up in landfill. As they say in the UK, minutes on the lips, but a lifetime on the tips. Now, cities are responsible for recycling in public spaces, and they run the residential blue bin programs, but cups are generally treated as garbage. Put single-use cups in those containers, and the result may be that everything else in the bin ends up in landfill due to cross-contamination. The truth is, it costs more to separate the cups from the other materials in the bin than you can sell the resulting fiber for, so it's cheaper to treat it like garbage. And as if this weren't already bad enough, cities across North America are abandoning their blue box programs because they're simply not sustainable. There's no economic incentive to separate cups, and cross-contamination reduces the value of the entire load. So even when garbage collection and recycling is outsourced by the city to a third party, or a property manager retains a waste management company to service their building, 80% of what you think is being recycled often goes, you guessed it, to a landfill. Now, all of this waste is generally collected and taken to a materials recycling facility, known in the business as a MRF, or a waste aggregator, where it's sorted and baled. These guys get paid by the ton, but they can't make money separating cups from other materials because what they earn for the cup stock is less than the separation cost. When cups are added to other paper bales, it usually downgrades the value. Therefore, most cups, despite our best intentions, end up in landfill. Since China and most other Asian countries stopped accepting containers filled with recycled materials from North America, the price that the aggregators can earn for these materials has fallen significantly. With no demand, the price collapses, and since only some pulp mills can process cups, the cost of transporting bales of cup feedstock long distances means there's no money to be made. For the small percentage of cups that do make it all the way to a pulp mill, ready to be broken down and turned back into fiber, there's a different problem. How can they determine that the contents of a half-ton bale of mixed paper or polycoat are what they say they are? There's no audit trail, and you can't tell what's on the inside just by looking at the outside of the bale. Bales are sold based on weight, but high moisture content from humidity or rain can significantly inflate bale weight and reduce yield. So mills must break the bales or invest in core sampling and core drilling technology to quality control what they're buying. It's a messy business, and it's not a profitable one, which makes investing in additional capacity unattractive. After all, even if you make new cup stock with recycled fiber, there's only limited demand from the cup manufacturers, and so the whole system is really set up to fail. The system is broken. But if we can create value at the furthest end of the ecosystem, the economic pull that's created addresses all of the issues we've discussed. Today, a ton of used polycoat fiber delivered to a pulp mill sells for between $30 and $40 a ton, sometimes much less. Prices even went negative here in Ontario at the start of 2020. We asked pulp mills and aggregators what difference it would make to their business if we paid each of them $1,000 a ton to process paper cups. As you can imagine, their eyes widened and they told us it would be transformative, creating a huge demand for cups upstream. Cups used for recycling would become highly valued, collected, separated, and the resulting recycled paper output could be sold to cup manufacturers at much lower rates than today. It sounds like an impossible aspirational dream, but by turning the existing business model on its head, we can change the economics of recycling for every player in the system. Now, for the first time, the IOTA distributed ledger can make the entire system financially viable. By using unique QR codes and making each individual cup its own economic agent, we can track its entire life cycle on the ledger, from manufacture to where it's sold to how it's recycled. And on its journey from birth to rebirth, the data about its progress is recorded on the immutable IOTA tangle, creating unprecedented transparency and value for the downstream cup stock. Now, the most obvious question is, where will the money come from and who pays for this? And that's easy. It will come from a 25-cent deposit imposed on the beverage at the time of sale, paid by the consumer and collected, but not retained by the retailer. A deposit that's assigned to the individual cup by a value transfer to its digital twin IOTA address. Now, we've already seen that governments have decided that 25 cents is just about the right value for a deposit, and this amount is already built into the price of your drink. Bring your own refillable cup to most coffee shops, and they'll reduce the price you pay anywhere from 10 cents to 25 cents today. So this really isn't a big leap. In the UK, Starbucks offers the equivalent of a 31-cent US discount if you bring your own cup, but less than 2% of consumers ever take advantage of the opportunity. Deposits on wine and beer bottles are commonplace and established consumer behavior in global markets. In many US states and in British Columbia, here in Canada, deposits are already charged on plastic bottles, glass bottles, cans, detergent bottles, milk cartons, cereal boxes, and much more. And recycling rates of 85% and higher are commonplace. Deposit and refund schemes are proven to be effective around the world in raising recycling rates significantly. So none of this is rocket science or revolutionary, but these existing systems have no way of tracking individual items. They do little to reveal how much material actually gets recycled versus refunded, and they create a significant audit challenge as money is collected in one place but refunded somewhere else. For the first time, IOTA makes this entire process efficient, auditable, fraud-resistant, and economically practical. We will build an open public data commons solution that will provide transparency to consumers and to government agencies about what's really happening with cups, and we'll be able to track individual cups from one end of the ecosystem to the other. This is only possible using digital twins, unique IOTA identities printed on each cup at the time of manufacture at almost zero marginal cost. And these digital identities will be provided and issued by the biotosphere. Each digital ID will be used to record the life history of a cup and record the micropayments that fuel the system from end to end. Now, let me introduce you to the KUPkrush unit. It's a reverse vending machine that only accepts participating hot and cold single-use paper cups with a valid QR code and an active deposit. The KUPkrush machine is a dedicated device that will be located where consumers are most likely to dispose of cups, in retail concourses, transit hubs, office tower lobbies, and high-traffic street corners. The unit will be largely touchless. Scanning the cup will initiate the refund, and you'll be able to interact with the machine using a smartphone or just a physical piece of paper or plastic with little more than a QR code on it. No personal ID will ever be required to guarantee your privacy. In order to receive a refund, the cup must be empty and uncontaminated so that the resulting cup stock is of the highest quality and no other materials are mixed with it. Remember, the digital twin record knows the weight of the empty cup and the machine can weigh the incoming item. The final design is still to be determined, but the important thing to understand here is that the machine will not only ingest cups and issue refunds, will also get paid for the data it produces and for every cup it recycles, so that owning KUPkrush units will be a highly profitable business with an ROI of 75 to 100% in the first year. Now, of course, technology is important, but getting all of the players in this ecosystem on board is an essential component for agreeing on standards and getting the buy-in that leads to large-scale adoption. Because without adoption, even the best concept will fail. Enter FISC, the Food Industry Sustainability Consortium. FISC is a non-profit foundation representing all the players in the ecosystem, from cup makers to pulp mills, from municipalities to coffee shops, from property managers and waste managers to the food packaging industry. Many of FISC's members will be competitors outside of this context, so it's important that any solution be 100% permissionless and open, so even small players can participate on a level playing field. Even single-location stores like a family restaurant will be able to buy coded cups from cup makers and a scanner and participate without having to ask permission or join a special members-only association. FISC's role is to drive adoption through marketing, consumer education, and public awareness campaigns. And like every other player in this new ecosystem, FISC will receive a reward for every cup that gets recycled, so that it is fully funded and its activities are paid for by the system it represents. So now, with FISC at the center of our new circular economy, let's see how the whole system works. First, the biotosphere will issue bulk quantities of IOTA-based digital identities, which are at the very heart of the system. Cup makers will request batches of these unique codes via API, which they can subsequently use. Next, the cup converter will print a unique QR code on each new cup they manufacture. Paper cups are already inkjet printed with batch codes during manufacturing today, so the addition of a more sophisticated code does not materially change the manufacturing process or add cost to the cups. As the cups are produced, data is associated with each identity and is sent to the IOTA ledger. Information such as the size, weight, and construction of the cup, as well as the materials used, including the proportion of recycled content in the fiber. Manufacturer, plant location, date, cup design, and other details are all recorded on the ledger. At the retail location, the cups are treated just as they are today. They have no value until they're sold with a beverage to a consumer, so there's no risk of creating a black market in unused cups. Consumers now enter the picture. As beverages are sold, the QR code is scanned, and a 25-cent deposit is charged as part of the purchase price and optionally shown as a separate line item on the receipt. Now, it's important to understand that the deposit is sent immediately and directly to the unique cup identity address and not held by the retailer. This is the first significant difference between this solution and previous deposit schemes, and it eliminates many of the audit and fraud issues associated with those programs. Now, in the scanning process, additional data is recorded against the transaction, such as the retail chain, the store ID, and the geocode where the sale occurred, plus the timestamp of the transaction, etc. Now, we don't want to know anything about the buyer or the product that they purchased. We want to protect consumer privacy, and the only thing we care about is tracking the cup. Of course, we don't expect the retail store to perform this task for free. Collecting the deposit on behalf of the cup and transferring the value will be rewarded, but that reward is only released when the cup is later ingested by a KUPkrush machine. Notice on this slide that in addition to the pending 10-cent refund for the consumer, both the retailer and the cup maker also have pending rewards, shown in gray, that will only be released when the cup moves along its journey to the next stage in the process. Now, at this point, the consumer has their beverage in hand, and some 15 to 30 minutes later, their drink is consumed. The embedded 10-cent refund can only be released by taking the cup to a KUPkrush unit. If they throw the cup away, they get nothing. We'll assume at this point that the cup is scanned at a KUPkrush unit, authenticated and ingested, and at this point several interesting things happen. First, the pending rewards for the cup manufacturer and the retailer are released back to them, and you'll note how the gray items turn blue. There we go. Both parties now have a vested interest in cups being recycled because they make money based on this beneficial act, but because IOTA is completely feeless, there's no loss to middlemen. Secondly, the consumer is rewarded with a 10-cent payment for their virtuous behavior. Their reward can be directed to a digital wallet or transferred as a credit for transit travel, sent to a loyalty card, or even directed to a charity. You can imagine all kinds of cups for causes promotions where cups are seen as having significant value, especially when multiplied over large populations. Consumers may even receive more than 10 cents if their action triggers additional rewards. For example, you might get a matching bonus of 10 cents towards your next coffee purchase if your reward is sent to your coffee loyalty card. But even if a consumer thoughtlessly tosses their cup away, anyone who collects it and returns it to a KUPkrush unit can claim the reward because the value goes to whomever recycles it. Again, additional data is collected about the ingestion of the cup, which is crushed and shredded by the machine and added to a digital twin QR-coded bag we call a brick. Now, bricks have their own unique digital ID, just like the cups, and each brick contains approximately 500 cups. The machine has performed a valuable service and receives a pending 5-cent reward, again shown here in gray, in return for every cup it processes. Owning one of these machines will be extremely profitable, with an expected 70% to 100% payback within a year. So we expect property managers and municipalities will want to deploy the units wherever they can. The machine can also collect other valuable data, such as temperature, humidity, noise, and air quality, all of which will be added to the immutable ledger, becoming part of the public data commons. The machine will also detect when it's nearing capacity and can advertise that fact over the network to collection agents. So these collection agents will, in their turn, be rewarded for emptying the KUPkrush units. They get paid 3 cents per cup or $15 per brick to empty the machine, scan the brick ID, and replace it with a new empty bag with a new brick ID. Just like all the other incentives, the $15 per brick reward will not be paid until the brick is subsequently received and scanned by the waste aggregator. But you can see we're creating viable financial business opportunities for every player in the system just for doing the right thing. And the collection agents in this model might be quite different from the people you expect. Just as an example, post office vans go out every morning full, but often return to the depot empty. Perhaps the post office can participate in this economy, assisting in the recycling process while generating revenue. One can imagine an entire gig economy of people like rideshare drivers who might earn a living servicing these units in return for the rewards. Now, collection agents will deliver the bricks to waste aggregators where they can be scanned and the transaction recorded on the ledger. The collection agents and the KUPkrush machine receive their reward, and the bricks are compacted, strapped, and added to half-ton bales containing 50,000 cups each. Now, each bale has a unique bale ID, and it contains details about each of the bricks it contains, and therefore data on every cup in the bale. The aggregator will earn 1 cent per cup for this service, but won't get paid until the bales reach the pulp mill. Remember that this 1 cent reward translates into $1,000 per ton for the aggregator, and they didn't have to spend time, resources, or energy separating the cups from other materials because everything in the bale is single-stream, uncontaminated cup stock. In other words, it's high-quality fiber that's not only desirable, it's extremely valuable, but only when it arrives at a pulp mill. So, after transportation to the mill, the half-ton bales are scanned. There's no need to take core samples or break the bales apart to ensure quality and consistency. After all, every bale comes with a full audit of every single cup it contains. The mill knows about the weight, construction, and fiber content of every single one of those 50,000 constituent cups, and they too receive 1 cent for every cup they recycle. At $1,000 per ton, you can be sure that they'll be actively searching for all the cup stock they can possibly find. For this sort of money, mills that don't currently have the technology to process cup stock will seriously consider making the required investments to compete in this lucrative market, and the resulting supply should help drive down the cost of recycled fiber, making cups that use recycled content cheaper. And so, the entire cycle becomes self-sustaining. Finally, when the bales are processed by the pulp mill and the record is written to the IOTA ledger, the pulp mill receives its payment. And at the same time, both FISC and the biotosphere each receive a 1 cent reward for their part in the ecosystem, and so the virtuous cycle begins anew. It's all very elegant and addresses most of the issues around cup recycling that exist today. However, no system is ever going to be 100% efficient, so you might be wondering what happens to the cups that people still throw away. It's a great question. Here again, the beauty of the DLT solution, and IOTA can provide the answer. While many recycling programs around the world have achieved return rates in the high 80% and 90% range, we assume in the early stages that perhaps a conservative 20% of cups will be returned to a KUPkrush unit. For the other 80%, we know from the ledger the timestamp of when the deposit was collected, and if the cup is not returned for a refund within 30 days, a smart contract will release those funds so they're not lost. Half of that money will be redirected to the municipality where the cup was sold. Remember, we have a geocode for the location of every transaction, and that means that the municipalities will receive funding to pay for local sustainability initiatives where the garbage was actually generated. The balance of the funds will go to FISC to fund additional education, marketing and awareness, and Biotosphere to build and deploy additional KUPkrush units. And both of these initiatives will increase recycling rates, so the system becomes more and more efficient and effective over time. Our current plan is to engage with one or multiple major urban cities to build the initial prototypes, and we want to conduct the pilot projects to prove out the system and demonstrate that it can not only work, but that it can change the way that both the industry and consumers look at cups. Here's how the numbers might play out if we conduct our pilot in the city of Toronto. Toronto uses about 600 million, not billions, 600 million cups a year, and we target the downtown core, aiming for about 10% coverage. That would mean printing 60 million of our smart QR-coded cups to be used by participating retailers in the core. We intend to locate 100 KUPkrush units in high-traffic areas such as subway stops, shopping concourses, office lobbies, etc., with a conservative target return rate of 20% to the machines. This assumes that 80% would still be disposed of as at present, except that the City of Toronto would then receive a significant income from those cups that are not recycled. If we're successful, the biotosphere returns about $3 million to its investors in the pilot. Of course, the market potential in North America is 2,000% larger than this at 120 billion cups per year. But that's how we turn 25 cents into a $30 billion opportunity in North America and a $150 billion global opportunity. Not only do we solve the world's paper cup problem without destroying the fast food and coffee shop business in the process, but we also put billions of dollars into the hands of municipalities for sustainability initiatives. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, we're already talking to several key players in the space, but this project is going to be inclusive, so we invite city, regional, and federal participants, players in the fast food and recycling industries, as well as commercial and philanthropic investors to reach out to us. There's a lot of work still to be done, but we believe this initiative can be used to make recycling make sense and make dollars. We believe the KUPkrush initiative is a natural step in the trend towards smart cities, harnessing DLT and the Internet of Things to create a major force for positive change in our world. The IOTA Foundation and the wider IOTA community, together with groups like the IEN, are making the next generation protocol of the Internet of Things a reality. Standards bodies like OMG and the Tangle EE Eclipse Working Group and others will set the standards by which the world will agree to interoperate and cooperate. Our task is now to get governments and representatives in the food and recycling industries to recognize this unique opportunity to take a leadership position. The KUPkrush project will allow us, our children and future generations, to have our cake and to eat it too, and then wash it all down with a great cup of coffee. Thank you for listening.
That was a great presentation, Terry.
Thank you.
Really good. And as you can see from the comments, everyone is wondering, this will be the first question, what's your experience in broadcasting? Because you always have the voice of a professional radio person.
I guess it's all in the genes. I inherited this good vocal cord, and I use it whenever I can. So thank you. It's flattering, but it's really just in service of a bigger cause.
Yeah. So talking about the bigger cause, I will ask a couple of questions, and then I will look at the chat and see the questions that they have.
Cool.
So my first one is obviously, as you can imagine, the same kind of question that I always get is, what is the incentive for the big players, the actual people that you need to convince in order for this to not just be an interesting concept, but to actually be something that impacts the world? So what is your adoption strategy? What is the incentive for them?
So in terms of adoption strategy, this is going to be one of those cases where once this snowball starts rolling down the hill, it's going to pick up steam. Obviously, getting the initial players on board is the greatest challenge, but we've already had many conversations and very, very positive feedback from pulp mills, cup manufacturers, waste management companies. We've been talking literally to people in associations and throughout this ecosystem, and all of the feedback so far has been extremely positive. The biggest question we always get is, why would the big retailers like Starbucks and McDonald's and Tim Hortons get on board with something like this? And my response is, in many ways, they really can't afford not to. Actually, hang on a second. I think I have a slide on this. Because retailers really know the massive amount of waste that's created by discarded cups. And it's a problem that consumers and governments are increasingly concerned about. So the retailers know if they don't do something themselves, the decision might actually get taken out of their hands and a solution could well be imposed on their business that they really won't like, one that could hurt sales and threaten corporate valuations. So discarded cups and their environmental impact carry huge reputational brand risk, and they don't currently have viable corporate social responsibility answers for this problem. They're working on them, but they always seem to be further away than reality. And so it's really much more than just a brain teaser that Howard Schultz alluded to in his autobiography. I don't think that they can afford to keep kicking the cup down the road much longer. So being cast as a global polluter isn't good for business, and the first chain that jumps on board is going to have a significant first mover advantage, forcing the others to follow suit. I believe that our solution could place retailers ahead of what I see as a coming environmental activism tsunami. And this will allow them to ride the wave instead of being buried by it. And we can help them solve a problem they've been wrestling with for years. We can make them consumer heroes, and they get to make money too. And who knows, perhaps a major brand could start a profitable new division deploying KUPkrush units and collecting the lucrative service revenues that flow from them. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, definitely a very good answer. And yeah, to me it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you. Like this is a solution for a big problem that's been around for a long while, where there hasn't been a lot of innovation, I would say, even though you touched upon what is currently the status quo, and in my opinion it's been the same thing for the last 20-30 years.
Yep.
There's not really been a lot of innovation. So
yeah. And with COVID, a lot of the programs that have been talked about, like reusable cups and getting people to bring their own cup with them, which for the most part is impractical. Very few people are willing to walk around, with a dirty coffee cup in their handbag, or, sort of, where are you going to put the thing in their backpack? And then there are all kinds of issues around cleaning these things. And all of that was stopped with COVID. And many of those retailers are now going to be actually increasing the number of paper cups they're giving out, because for the foreseeable future, reusable and returnable cups are simply not practical solutions in a world of COVID.
Yeah, no, I think you have a very good timing for this. So my last question before I go to the community questions is, how long would it take you to, let's say you get all these people on board right now, how long would it take you as the biotosphere to get the first KUPkrush out there?
I think that's relatively fast. Like any development process, there will be, first alpha prototypes, and then you'll refine the design as you go. The biggest challenge is not a technological one. Building a reverse vending machine is pretty straightforward. Building the components for IOTA and the Tangle are also pretty straightforward. The technology's there. We've got coordicide coming. The transaction speed in terms of being able to process these things is absolutely coming. The scalability is there. I don't have any doubts about the technology. The biggest challenge and the biggest impediment to getting going is getting all of the players on board. As you know only too well, it's the politics, not the technology, that's the thing that slows you down. Building shit is easy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, as you said, we can definitely relate. All of us who has built something, we definitely know. So I will go through some of the community questions.
Sure.
So the first one is from Noah Zuckerman, or Zuckerman. I don't know how you pronounce your last name, but it's actually on the same topic that we were just discussing, but it's kind of from a different angle. So he is asking, which industry players do you feel will be the most challenging to get on board? And also just he is also asking how he or the IEN network community, how can they participate in that process, making it more, essentially building your personal army.
It's a very interesting question. I think you're seeing around the world that grassroots movements where the people demand a change are coming more and more to the forefront. If we look at Greta's movement in terms of getting young people around the world to demand the change that older generations talk about but rarely get going on, I think that kind of grassroots movement is absolutely going to make a difference. If you look at the power that a single photograph of a turtle with a plastic straw in its nose had on eliminating plastic straws globally, I don't think that turtle ever realized or was properly thanked for its contribution to humanity. But it's that kind of grassroots movement that makes an incredible difference. Straws actually represent a very tiny percentage of the amount of plastic that we need to recycle. But that one straw in that one turtle had a dramatic impact. And I think when people start demanding of retailers and governments start recognizing that there's only so much landfill, that will get people on board. And this is a problem that people in the industry are aware of. They know they have to solve it. They've struggled with it. They've wrestled with it. And we're presenting a solution that not only solves the problem at the front end, which is where people have always focused. Oh, we'll put a cup tax on the cup, and that will disincent people from buying coffee in paper cups. Well, it also hurts the coffee retailer's business, and we don't want to do that. We actually want to make it the same business model, but now find a way to actually move that extended producer responsibility, which is where it should be, so that the people who create the mess are responsible for cleaning up after themselves. I mean, we were taught that by our mothers as small children, get a good night's sleep and clean up your mess. And that's what we need to do. But we're doing it in such a way that everybody actually, by looking out for their own selfish rewards, actually serve the greater community. And we have a completely self-sustaining circular economy that works not only for all the participants, but for consumers and future generations and the planet. I hope that's not too wordy as a response.
No, definitely not. I think that's very fair. And as you said, it's not about the platitudes. It's really about the action. And what I'm most impressed about this is that you've thought about all the different steps of the way. It's not just about, hey, let's give the consumer a little incentive. It's really about the entire life cycle of and in the entire ecosystem around how that life cycle transpires. So, and your presentation was brilliant. I think you've covered virtually all bases. Maybe the only one that I'm wondering a little bit about, you mentioned it briefly, was the FISC part of this. Have you been in any dialogue with the regulatory bodies of this, or is this?
So, FISC would be more of an industry association, and we've already had conversations with some, as I say, of the major players, can't say who they are, where, there's the potential for this presentation to be delivered at a major industry association meeting later this year. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, but the first steps are being taken. And as the old saying goes, the 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step, and that's what we've done. But the fact that, as you've mentioned, the presentation addresses all of the players and all of the issues is testament to the fact that we've been in conversation with people and we've shown them our thoughts and ideas and actually gone to them not to say, hey, here's a great idea, but here's a great idea. Pick holes in it. Tell us what's wrong. Tell me what we don't understand about your business. Tell us what's missing. So what you've seen today is actually the result of that sort of feedback, so that we've actually thought this through from beginning to end. I'm sure there are still other things still to be done, but for the most part, we really have addressed industry concerns and made sure that everybody is being looked after as we look after the planet.
Yep. No, for sure. Good answer. And I just want to make sure that we get as many questions as we can through. So one of the things that is being asked a couple of times here, so I will just, I will distill it into one question: is how do you optimize the usage of this in terms of where do you place the units, and also how will that actually look like in a store? Like if I have these cups, I want to discard them, and I want to be a participant in this economy. How do you optimize that? Because of course today you pretty much just look at the data, where are people, and you try your best to just put it there. Is there any other alternative, or how are you thinking about the distribution of these?
So for the pilot, the plan is to place these in high traffic areas, places where people traditionally, will deposit and drop off a coffee cup or a cola cup or something like that. So typically things like transit hubs, subway stations, large intersections, busy shopping malls. And we anticipate that, for example, a shopping mall might actually see this as a traffic builder, because now it might have the potential of bringing people to the store, and they could even incent people, bring your coffee cups to our mall, and when you deposit your cup, we'll do matching that you can use in any participating retailer in our shopping mall. So there's all kinds of things that we can do. Of course, the machines are intelligent agents themselves with their own digital identity. So the machines will start to inform us about which units are being used and when they're being used and how they're being used. And so that information will allow us, and because this whole thing is self-sustaining and self-funding, once we get the initial seed money, the machines pay for themselves very rapidly. And from the data we collect, the refunds on the cups that aren't being used, as well as the refunds on the cups that are recycled, can then be used to fund more machines. And we use the data that we've collected to position these new units. But all of that would be done together with the city, who have a lot of information about garbage collection and disposal. And some of it will be worked out in partnership as we go. I don't claim to have a magic bullet or a crystal ball, but the machines will help us in that process. And the amount of data that we'll be collecting is actually quite staggering. And making this an open public data commons gives governments, environmental agencies, and the general public visibility into a problem that today is completely buried, mostly in a landfill.
Yeah, no, for sure. So actually touching upon the last thing you said there, it kind of segues into identity. Do you foresee, of course, as you said, there's a lot of creative ways we can do this. Do you also see that identity will play a role here, where you can kind of build up rewards, as I think you touched upon in your presentation, that a certain person or a certain company can kind of gamify this by color tokens or equivalent mechanisms? Do you see that in the roadmap, or is that just kind of like a high-level idea?
It's interesting. One of the fundamental principles which I have been adamant about from the beginning is that at no time, if you go into a coffee shop, hesitant to sort of name names, but today lots of people buy gift cards, which they give, it's a great way to give somebody a gift, is to buy a gift card at a coffee shop. And the moment you register that, the retailer then starts tracking all kinds of information about you as an individual. How often you drink coffee, what kind of drink you order, do you order in the morning, which stores do you frequent rather. And I'm really adamant that if we do this, that it should not actually be part of the surveillance capitalist economy, that it should actually protect consumer privacy. So your ability to interact with the machine, the way it's envisioned right now, will not require any personal identity. All you'll need to do is to scan your cup, which will have the QR code printed on the bottom or the side. That will then trigger the machine to open once it knows that it's a valid QR code with a deposit on it. And the only thing that you'll need to do is to basically show a QR code which will target where your refund is going to be directed. Now, that might be to your transit card, it might be back to the loyalty card for the coffee company, and it might be that, all the kids at a particular school are collecting their parents' coffee cups, and they're all given a piece of paper with a QR code, so that anybody who gives who puts the cups in can target the money to building a new school library, or putting a new roof on the local church, or building a hospital in a developing country. But the idea is not to identify the individual and not to compromise individual identity and privacy. Now, digital identity is still important because we need trusted identity for the KUPkrush machines. We need trusted identity for the scanning units that are going to be in the retail stores and used by the collection agents. So we do need trusted identity that those machines doing the scanning are who or what they claim to be, and so that's an important component. But I guess you could earn, potentially, like mana, you could earn reputational credit for virtuous deeds, but so far that's not part of the master plan.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yes.
I think we could just brainstorm to the
all day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do see a question at the bottom here about plastic bottles. This obviously is a first step, but the principles that I've described are reproducible and expandable to all kinds of other things, where you actually, apply the same principle, whether it's to plastic bottles or to other items like this. Plastic bottles today I see as being a total scourge on the environment. It's probably a much bigger problem than paper cups in terms of the impacts on the environment. But you have to start somewhere, and there are bottle deposit and return schemes in various parts of the world. Nobody has taken on the paper cup, and it's a problem that literally is littering everywhere we go. And I just decided now was the time to fix it.
No, I think you're very right. Like, someone else asked the question of why start with this rather than cups and cans. No, I mean cans and bottles.
Yeah.
It's exactly because, as you said, these have already been started to be addressed, whereas cups have never even been thought of, I think. Of course, it's been thought of, but it hasn't been provided any kind of solution.
Correct.
So I definitely see the novelty there and the importance of actually bringing that topic to the table, because I think most people think of cups as just
garbage.
Paper. Paper and away, and they're not aware of the fact that it's even coated inside. I don't think most people know that.
And most people look at the cup and assume that it's paper, and they often throw it in a recycling bin, and they actually reduce the recycled value of what they've added it to. And of course, by the time they throw in, the coffee dregs and the banana peel and everything else, usually what they do is they cross-contaminate the whole container and none of it gets recycled. It may look like it's getting recycled, but behind the scenes, recycling is often an illusion. There's, a lot of really good movies about this, and we plan on posting some stuff at the Biotosphere website with links to movies and videos like The Story of Stuff and various other, background resources that sort of cast light on the way that the recycling industry works, or in this case, doesn't work.
Yeah, so I will just take two more questions, and then we can go into the project.
And I feel bad for Ben, who's waiting in the wings there. So.
So, okay, there's one question from Tobias Meyer that I just saw here.
Yep.
He kind of just asked almost rhetorically, 600 billion cups, that's a hell of a lot of TPS needed. So you made an estimate that if this is successful, you could aim for 20% in the short, medium term. And I'm just going to ask you, are you confident that this will be able, like, have you done any sort of math on IOTA? I should probably be the one answering this.
That's why I'm laughing, because I'm going to ask the question right back at you, David. I mean, the beautiful thing here is, even if we just look in North America, and, you know, I have to be a realist, we're not going to get every single cup manufactured, printed with a QR code, let alone sold with a deposit and added onto the ledger. But every single cup is going to produce somewhere in the region of, I don't know, 10 to 15 data transactions and about 8 to 10 value transactions. So however many cups you actually have to multiply that number by about 20 in terms of the number of transactions that would actually occur on the tangle. Now, obviously, I'm betting on IOTA and the IOTA Foundation and KUPkrush side, so let me throw that right back at you. Can I move forward safe in the knowledge that that by the time we get all of the players on board, this is not going to happen tomorrow or the day after, but by the time we get the players on board and we deploy the prototypes and we start scaling it up, I mean, this is the reason that IOTA is the only legitimate and viable technology in my mind that could actually solve for this problem because of its scalability. Over to you. Answer your own question.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think it's a very interesting point because, of course, when you start to think about scalability, people are like, okay, this is cool, it's all theoretical, etc. But here you have an actual use case where you can make it more tangible. So I know for a fact that post-Coordicide with slicing/sharding, this will not be a problem at all. So actually, it would just be very beneficial. Like, we want as many transactions as possible. So So that answers Tobias's question.
Cool. And the other great thing here, of course, is that, you know, when you talk about slicing and sharding, you know, a coffee cup is going to be purchased at a store and redeemed at a KUPkrush machine probably no more than 15 or 20 miles away. So it's not like you need to have an entire global DLT handling every single transaction. Most of these transactions are going to be very localized. And again, the sorts of solution that the IOTA Foundation are proposing with slicing and this sort of multiverse of tangles is perfectly suited to solve the sort of problem that we're addressing.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I see just one last question before we move over to Ben.
You keep saying that.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so this is from Damsgaard. He says, I would love this for festivals. Most PF, I guess that's petrol fueled or something along those lines. Then we're really ahead thinking in environment too. Yeah, that's true. A lot of festivals try to do their best to make some cool gimmicks. But I guess the bigger question here is actually, what is the scale that these KUPkrush machines could process? He asks, actually, in the second here, I see that he actually asks how many per minute, whereas I don't think that's even relevant because the IOTA network can handle it. And if you see a bigger demand, that like there's a huge queue, you simply get another KUPkrush machine.
Or make it faster.
So I think that kind of answers itself. I just want to make sure that I didn't. Yeah, I see some people are asking also questions about other things, like cigarette butts, etc. And sure, it's definitely it's a valid question, but we have to start somewhere, and I don't think we can extrapolate into every single waste that humanity makes because
and you know, if we dive into the minutiae, I think we miss the big picture, quite literally. But in terms of Tobias's question, you know, the great beauty of these machines is just like you bring in porta potties to a festival, you could bring in KUPkrush machines that could be used, whether it's for paper cups or if we expand into plastic bottles to do exactly the same thing. The machine itself in addition to crushing and accepting the cups, we'll also be able to do things like air quality monitoring. But it could also have, since it's going to need some connectivity, whether it's 5G or Wi-Fi. So at a festival, the KUPkrush machine could also be a source of Wi-Fi signal or a 5G signal. It's going to have its own GPS code so that it knows where it's physically located. So again, we know where the cup was sold. We know where the cup was migrated. If you think about it, we can actually start showing people how many cups were actually sold and recycled at that festival. We can start to show people how far the average cup moves between vending and refunding, because we know the geocodes for those two events. So, you know, government agencies, even the retailers, will start to know how far do our cups move? Where do they go? You know, you can start tracking in the same way that Google Maps has the ability to track us as people. I don't want that ability via coffee cup, which is why I don't want any personally identifiable information. And I want this to be completely GDPR compliant. But we can track the cup because nobody really cares about tracking the cup. And it would be really interesting to see where cups flow and how long they take before they get recycled, or how long they live between vending and discarding, those kinds of things. So huge potential, total amounts of data that would become available to government agencies for their own planning is staggering, and none of it is available today. None of it has ever been available before, and it's all available at no extra cost because the audit trail is immutable, it's trusted, and it comes at no extra charge, just as a function of operating the network.
Yeah, no, I think this is a tremendous application of IOTA, and not just, it's not even about IOTA. Like, sure, it's about IOTA, but on the other hand, it's more about actual thing, and IOTA is just there in the background making it possible.
Yeah,
so,
and most of the partners that we're talking about, frankly, they don't care about IOTA. They care about the business problem and solving the business problem. And if IOTA happens to be the technology to solve it, great. If there was a better solution, they'd use that. I just don't know of a better solution. And obviously, I would like to think that I can do my part for the community and the network here. But it really is the best tool to get this job done. And I notice down here, I saw a message in here from Dennis. Yeah, introductions to anybody from within the community. If you have connections, if you know people, especially at the government level, because at the government level, we can make a lot of stuff happen, but governments only have so much power. We need everybody on board. This will be a community and a collective effort. But ultimately, we all share the planet. We better start taking care of it and make a profit while we're doing it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not certainly. So just to be a good host, because this is my first time hosting something like this, I thank you a lot for the presentation. It's tremendous. I think the project is going to really open the eyes of people and also bring a lot of new players to the IOTA ecosystem. So hopefully that cup will go into a KUPkrush in the future. KUPkrush, I mean.
We hope so.
Yeah. So yeah, now that we've talked about, actually you almost segued into it in terms of you want to track the actual cup, not the user. So now we can go into the topic of social media. How is it that we don't own our own identity, the data that we produce? We are consumers of social media, but we're also prosumers of data. And this is where Ben Royce and Society 2 comes in. So welcome, Ben Royce, to the chat.
Hello. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Terry. It's a very, very important project. We need to take care of our world. And this is exactly the kind of thing we like to see in the IOTA ecosystem. Very
Indeed.
important. So this is Society 2. We've only been around for less than a month, really. We got a lot of good press last month. It's been talked about in the background for a couple of months. And maybe I can tell you a little more today about our value proposition and what we are doing. At first, I thought of a long philosophical discussion about why privacy is so important in social media. But rather than have that long philosophical discussion, this exchange here from the beginning of Facebook kind of just makes it very visceral. This is why. This is why we want to move social media into a decentralized platform, because it's about trust. And rather than trust a corporation or the government with our private information, we should trust ourselves. Everyone listening to the news and following the news, there's all sorts of news coming out about how, very shocking things are happening with their information, some of it being hacked and disclosed, some of it just straight up being misused in certain ways. And of course, all this data that is literally being mined, they're profiting off of it. They're profiting off of your identity. Everything about your life, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your romantic life, your friends, your family, some of your private thoughts and your dreams. We're all pouring this out onto social media, and it's just being mined for profit. In a way, it's a violation of ourselves. Not, a member of the older generation here, but definitely the younger people who have grown up with social media. Their digital identities are extension of themselves, and they should be able to control it. So this is an example of social media today. There are many different silos of data. This is an important theme from IOTA, the larger project of how all this data is collected and kept in these silos rather than shared. It's all being spied on. It's being profited off of. Jack from Twitter, he's thinking about this problem as well. A lot of people are. Some of you have heard of Shoshana Zuboff. She wrote a great book about surveillance capitalism, and it's all about this problem, this how social media in our lives is becoming sort of a method almost of control. So what should social media be like? Well, number one, you should be able to control who has access to view anything that you want to put online. If it's private, it really should be private. If it's just a chat between you and a friend, it should just be between you and your friend. It should not be on some site in some database. The connection shouldn't even be known. You can say the word privacy a couple of million more times because that's our central value proposition. But again, why trust us? Trust cryptography, real privacy. It should be portable. In the previous slide, these little red X's, if you're in Facebook and you have all this information and all these exchanges and all these connections, it's locked in Facebook and it stays there and there's no way out of it. While in a world where your identity is portable, like in decentralized social media, then maybe you can begin to share that to various sites and apps. And you should be able to have choice. Again, like before, being trapped in silos, rather than being trapped in a silo, we should have an inversion of power. The user should be able to say, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm going somewhere else, so that these social media sites are pandering towards you, rather than, we own you, whatever. So let's move to that world, decentralized social media. It goes on to IOTA's Tangle. when you think about, some people might be asking right now from a technical point of view, does that mean you're putting the social media messages on IOTA? IOTA is not a data storage solution. But what IOTA is in this scenario, it's sort of the trust and negotiation layer. The conversations themselves, the social media content, that's going on IPFS. And some other people might be thinking, well, you know, if you have, say, a screen with 1,000 chats, say like in a Reddit thread, how are you retrieving all of those messages in such a way that it's quick, it's highly available, it's responsive? You can think of it almost like a state machine. When you make a comment, it goes on to sort of a shared, a lot of people have used Google Docs where you can share and edit together. It's almost like that kind of scenario. Again, it's all atomic level, the control, the privacy the user has. It's, you know, default opt out. Any information you share, you are specifically saying, I would like to share this about me, and you can revoke it at any time. The decentralized ID, also known as self-sovereign identity. This is the technology that allows that to happen. I'll get into what technology that is on IOTA in a moment. And all this platform, this framework, all of these nodes and sites, they're competing for your attention and for content. And so the user is in a situation to choose rather than, you know, you're stuck in this bucket, you take what we give you and you're going to like it. So I mentioned Society 2, it fits into IOTA's ethos. It's an outgrowth of what people have been talking about IOTA for many years. Own your own data, like in healthcare, various business scenarios. This is now own your social media, own your own data in your social media. And it also depends upon the IOTA ecosystem in terms of other projects that are in development. IOTA Self, this is IOTA's decentralized identity play. It's you know, it's how do you establish an identity on the Tangle? You know, it's sort of like if you have a wallet, it's like your seed. You know, all this information about where you live, what your name is, who your friends are, it'll all be stored from that one key that, again, only you control, no outside company. AEON is a permanode solution in development. This will become very important because zero value transactions now fade away on IOTA Tangle. So, you know, some of these transactions have to be kept for a certain amount of time so that people can refer back to interactions. And then what used to be called mass authenticated messaging, now streams. This is the workhorse of Society 2. It allows for small messages to be stored on the Tangle, but as I said before, we're not storing social media interaction on the Tangle. This is just sort of the trust negotiation layer, as I said. And what I mean by that is, again, imagine a Reddit thread where you have a number of people commenting. If somebody enters the chat, you know, how is that negotiated? How is that established that they're allowed in this private chat, perhaps, or it could be public as well? When they leave, or let's say if they're moderated out, how that happens, so they're no longer can comment into that, things like that. So some of you might be wondering, okay, this sounds great, but how is this actually going to function when users are in Society 2 on this framework? How is it all going to come together? So this is a scenario of sort of the birth and life of a Society 2 social media node. Like you can run nodes on IOTA. What the scenario would be is that, number one, you would download a template. Let's say you want a dating app, a job board, a threaded discussion, a blog site, some curated videos. You would have a template that you would download that allows you to just plug and play. Once you're in, you know, once you set that up, you just People can come, join, and proceed. You could customize it. That might be a secret sauce as to how you stand out from other nodes and apps and sites out there. Revenue model. We're not going to be monks. There is going to be money made in all this. How it's mainly, we're talking about ad revenue. That's the main revenue stream we're talking about. There are ancillary revenue streams like a tip jar or a paywall, other things we're thinking about. IOTA is a cryptocurrency after all. How is that split going to function? What is the best scenario for your specific social media site? And to share ad revenue, the user, the default is they opt out. What specific demographics are requested? So when I say demographics, this comes back to decentralized identity. It's going to store all your personal information, but you're not going to hand all that over to the node to participate in that social media site. You're going to give it out piecemeal. For example, if you're on a dating app, you're going to say, I like snowboarding. You're going to share that information, but you're not going to share your name. While if you're, say, on a job board, you're going to talk about your name. Maybe they'll care later if you're like snowboarding, but at first that's not important information. But then they wouldn't share, say, your list of relatives, but that might be important for another private social media site that's just for your family, and where, of course, a lot more of your private information will be stored. And again, this is all default opt-out, and it's all atomic control, and you can revoke it at any time. And then, of course, another scenario might be on some discussion about politics on something like Reddit or something. You would have an anonymous handle, so that you can express your thoughts and your feelings without it coming back to you automatically. Another big issue is moderation. See now what I'm telling you about here is sort of let 1,000 flowers bloom. There's going to be a lot of nodes, people jockeying for all kinds of social media plays, and well, how do you know which ones are going to stand out? And the ones that stand out are the ones who respond to what people want. So when it comes to moderation, which of course is a very heated topic, it could be anything. The node owner decides how the moderation will proceed. It could be like 4chan and there's no moderation at all, and that'll appeal to somebody, but it won't appeal to most people. On the other end, you could have moderation that's extremely severe. That actually does work in some scenarios, say a discussion about science or history or something like that. But in general, quality in social media is somewhere in between anything goes and very strict, very locked down control. And it is going to be work. But again, if the node operator is making money off of this, they are going to have the motivation to make it a very quality setting for users to go there and participate and enjoy it. And again, as a final point here, so this is all again an inversion of power, as I said before. Users can vote with their feet. If they visit a site, they like a site, and they visit a long time, but then the quality drops, they're not locked into it. They're not locked into those data silos with Facebook and Twitter and all that. They can, there's another site just popped up that pretty much delivers the same content and everyone's going all over there. Boom, you can go like that. You don't lose any of your connections. You don't lose anything. And you have a growing universe of content. We are not the only play out there. There are a lot of privacy-focused services, Signal, Proton Mail. People are familiar with these products because privacy is one of those issues where a lot of people are like, I don't care, just show me my cat pictures. But people are becoming more aware. More and more people are aware of the abuses that have happened and can still happen. And this is a large and growing section of, social media. There's Brave. Brave is a play where the user can also share in the ad revenue, like we're talking about as well. We've done some business intelligence work, and we've looked at some of the competitors. I think the list is up to around 89 the decentralized social media plays we've looked at, and we looked at some of the ways they're lacking. You have to pay to post. The content is completely immutable. You can't edit it. You can't delete it. If somebody posts something awful, how do you moderate that? Again, it's no portability. You're locked in like in the old world with Facebook and Twitter. Limited interoperability, excuse me. Difficult to set up. We have to make sure that our experience that we deliver with Society 2 is the same as what people are used to today. Adoption is slow. Many, they say they're decentralized, but they're really not. And some focus on transparency rather than privacy. Transparency is very important, but our philosophy, our whole value proposition is that privacy is at the heart of what your social media experience should be. And this is who we are. Again, we started less than a month ago. Marcus, he's finishing up his PhD in Germany. Joseph works in IT in Australia. And I am here on the shores of Lake Ontario in upstate New York. You know, we've started. We've been at a few weeks, and our team is growing. Anyone in the IOTA community, please reach out to us. There is one other person who's not on this list, who I won't mention. They don't want to be mentioned, so we have a sort of a little a Star Wars Force ghost, as I like to call them. Joseph, he did the what I was just looking at before. He did the business intelligence research we were talking about. Marcus, we were just working on a demo. We did have a very rudimentary demo for you today, but at the last moment we backed out. We had some troubles with the DevNet. So please, IOTA community, reach out to us. Anyone, all sorts of skills. We've had people reach out because, you know, graphic design, issues like that. We'd love any skill sets you can bring to us. Tell your colleagues this is an important issue. Privacy is a very important issue. You know, bring up that it's more than I don't care. Let me see my cat pictures. Go to society2.com. Keep up to date with our progress. We can send you out a newsletter. So we're delivering you the latest information, and we will try to have an early prototype coming soon, as they say, in the third quarter. And finally, I think we're in a question and answer time.
Yeah, no, thanks for the presentation. Really interesting. And as you know, I'm very much a proponent of this future of social media. I am definitely not a huge fan of Facebook or Twitter or, yeah, the current status quo. So I'm very happy to see that we have people in our community that are actually tackling this in a serious fashion. I guess the first question that I will ask, I will take two questions from myself and I will look at the chat. My first question is, what is the adoption strategy? Because as you said, you looked at, I think you said 89 different decentralized social media plays, different kinds of ways to do it. None of them have succeeded in terms of getting mass adoption and having that killer application. So what is your strategy to get Metcalfe's law into action and really get hockey stick adoption?
Privacy, privacy, privacy. There are privacy sensitive people in this world. I'm one of them. We're all of them. All of us really are, if they think about it. That is our sales pitch. That's our value proposition. That's what we're putting out there. So hopefully it'll be adopted in the IOTA community and spread around from there by privacy sensitive people. And then if we make the experience just like the regular social media experience, people will be able to go over very easily. And if people do not become more aware of their privacy, then honestly, we won't be adopted either. But this is very important that we make this play because privacy is important. And my personal bet is that more and more people every day are getting aware of their privacy and will be more interested in joining.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think 10 years ago, privacy was kind of just shrugged off as like, yeah, it's private because I have to log in, so it's private. But that's not how reality works. You mentioned that today you hope to have a demonstration, but of course, as usually happens in development, there's always some last minute fuck ups, or not fuck ups, but like that there's some hiccups, I should say.
Yep.
And that's fine, completely fine. You mentioned that you want to have an early prototype of this in Q3. And of course, right now we are, we're just in the beginning of Q3. So is there any closer estimate? I know, I just want to ask this question because I've been asked it like 10,000 times in the last 3 years. So I just wanted to ask, what is the ETA?
I'm going to say September. The issue is this: we had sort of the engine built. Marcus is the engine built, which is the basic of the what we were talking about before, where we have the trust negotiation layer and putting some simple messages out there. In September, you're not going to see all this universe of social media offerings that we've been talking about. That's just going to eventually slowly grow. So the very simple rudimentary MVP will be sort of like if you think of a Reddit thread. That will be our, here we are, folks. We're live. We're real. We're ready to go.
Exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to trying it out. I think this is one of the things that IOTA can really shine at, because we have no fees, as you touched upon as well, and as Terry touched upon. I think that's one of the big killer applications, because if you're going to use this, you can't have fees. Like, you could never build something like this on Bitcoin. So I'm super excited. I'm just very happy to have people like yourself and your team in the community. And I will definitely be one of the first testers. Just let me know when I can test it, and I will definitely test it. So moving over to some of the community questions here. Pest Solable. Do you see current social media platforms such as Twitter moving on to this decentralized direction in the future? And I guess, just to add some context from my perspective, I guess it's kind of asking about Jack Dorsey's Bitcoin flirtation over the last few years, and his now recently set up task force to kind of decentralize Twitter over the next 5 to 10 years. What is your perspective on this?
Yeah, Jack's very much appreciated for being concerned about that. Facebook can be seen as almost the opposite. Libra is it takes all the offerings of crypto and inverts it because it's just another aspect of control. If you do follow up on the media and chats on Twitter, there's a lot of people out there who are thinking about this and how to make it work. So I think it really is going to go in this direction. And again, it's just all powered by the fact that some of us are very concerned with our privacy, and more of us every day are getting concerned with it. That's what's driving the whole thing. Current events, I mean, you can think of some current events right now off the top of your head that make you think, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, no, definitely. So here we have a very prominent community member as well. Hello, IOTA. So everyone knows who he is.
Hey, Chris.
He says, great presentation, and indeed, great presentation. And he asks, what do you think will make people switch over from Facebook and the likes, who are saying right now, I don't have anything to hide, I'll keep using Facebook?
I don't have anything to hide. It's just one of those sayings where you're trying to fool yourself. Everybody is saying something to hide. We all have our personal lives. We all have our private lives. And as our digital identities become more and more enmeshed with our identities and our values and everything about us, of course you have something to hide. So yeah, people though, okay, maybe that's true on one level, but on the other level, they're like, I don't got any to hide, sorry. And there's not much you can do with that. People who are aware will go over first. And then those who are not so impressed will follow, because they'll think about it and they'll say, yeah, I understand what's going on. I see what's happening.
Yep. And I was trying to Google right now. I think the best quote on this is something along the line. I'll probably butcher the fuck out of this, but it's something along the lines. It's not that I don't have anything to hide. It's more that I don't have anything I want to show you. And I think that's very powerful because it's not necessarily that you're trying to hide something. It's just that you don't want to highlight your entire life.
Yeah.
And that's, to me,
And-
that's the response.
And it's not even for someone, say, you're talking to. It's not about telling somebody you're talking to in a chat all about your life. The real problem is the fact that you have this machine, literally, that sometimes now and more often every day with AI, strip mining your private life because it can see every aspect of what you're doing in your life. And this is disturbing on so many levels.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, we can just look to China to see already now the yeah, it's just scary how we are entering this new decade. And I mean, with the protests that are currently going on, I think this is a very valid topic. It's fortunately thus far we haven't seen any major abuse of social media like we see in China with Hong Kong, but at the same time, you have a fucking president who is threatening to shut down social media because someone said something he didn't appreciate. I mean,
Right.
this is very
He's saying, "Don't censor me, so therefore I'll censor you." Right? The whole argument is kind of what? Where is this coming from? And again, that's the essential argument here. Don't trust some company who's motivated to make money and they don't care what aspect of your life they violate to do it. Don't trust a government for any thousand reasons. Don't trust us. Don't trust society too. Trust cryptography. Trust IOTA and the way it functions, and you'll know that if you put it out there, you made that choice. And if you didn't put it out there, it's really no one else knows about it. It's not sitting in some database somewhere in Facebook where they can use it to sell you who knows what, or worse.
So actually, this segues into a very interesting topic. And MC, I don't know who that is, but MC, you're asking a very important and relevant question here because you say Facebook keeps its users engaged because it shows them stories/news that interests them based on their data. And of course, this is kind of the recipe for all successful social media. It's that they gather your data, see what you're interested in, and then they feed it to you. So your dopamine in the brain says, hey, click another link, click another link. How would society to tackle this rudimentary fact of neurology? Because that's how the brain works.
Two ways. Number one, there are people who can be completely off the grid, and that's fine. And maybe they don't get that curation. But for most of us, we're really to give a little bit of our demographics in order to actually earn money from ads, right? And then also get that curation of content. And the second point would be it's a little bit like Reddit subreddits, where they don't necessarily have to know you live in Rochester, New York or Toronto, Canada. You're going to go to the Toronto or Rochester subreddits because you're interested in those kind of news. So it's a little bit of a halfway point. And if we miss out on this dopamine rush because they spy so much on you, that's a very deep and serious question, because yes, there will be some people who will be, I don't care, give me my dopamine.
Yeah, no, I think I think your answer is good, and I think the question is also good because this is where I would say that innovation just has to come into play. Like, you can still use data if the people opt in for it, they get paid for it, and you come up with completely new solutions and business models. But I definitely get the question, because if you don't create this curated, perfect user experience, it's very hard to take any share away from the incumbents.
Well, the other thing is Facebook is sort of one point of entry for your social life. So they know everything and they show you everything. But again, let's get back to the scenario of you're on a dating site and you're only going to share with that dating site one subset of your demographics, that you like snowboarding, for example. So that's going to show up in your curated feed of information attached to that. While mixed in with that are all the other sites that you're on that you've shared a subset of your demographics with, such as where you live, And then you get information about Rochester or Toronto and how it is. So you will get some of that. It will just be fragmented across
Yeah.
what you decided to join in terms of the various nodes running the various sites.
Yeah. So just to keep this not infinite, here's another old school community member, Kevin Chen. He's asking, what happens?
Hey, Kev, how you doing? He got me into IOTA. I owe Kev my experience in IOTA. So, hi, Kev.
Yeah, he's been great and has been part of this for years now. So he's asking, what happens if law enforcement want to use information from decentralized social media to collect evidence for wrongdoing? Will it be tough luck to them? Like, fuck
This
off?
is an excellent question because, this is all very loosey-goosey and abstract, and you come right down to it. How is it going to work if someone posts like a threat? Okay, I threaten someone's life, and then I hit enter and I put it in social media or any other content. Like with moderation, where you can moderate too much or moderate not enough, each of these node owners running these sites are responsible for that content. So the information of who runs this site will be out there, who runs this node, and the government of that place where you run that node will be able to go to you and say, we want to know who this is. Again, if you're running a site on the Hong Kong protests, right, you probably don't want that server, that node, to be in Shanghai. You want it in Taipei for various reasons. But then on another issue of much worse content out there that all countries agree it's absolutely awful, then wherever you are, it doesn't matter. The authorities will be able to ask the node owner, who will have to provide that information as a matter of law.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, as you said, it's a very, very important question. And this is at least the way that I hope to see decentralized media, social media arise. Because, of course, you could use zero knowledge proofs and you can use all this kind of fancy cryptography to make it completely safe for the worst people in the universe to use it. But that's, I gather that's not your vision at all. Like you want to protect the basic principles of anonymity, data ownership, etc. But it's definitely like society too is not trying to be some kind of safe haven for everyone.
Nope. Yeah. Sorry, no Silk Road.
Yeah, for sure. So then we have someone, Brian Stammvater. I have no clue how to pronounce his name, but he has a question here. I think it's no. I think not all the people care about their privacy. Those people probably are not the target for decentralized social networks. True, but for those who care about it, Society 2 and IOTA can be a great solution. Okay, fuck. I just picked something that was actually just a compliment. It's not even a question.
Well, no, but it's a good point. Society 2 is a bet. The bet is people will grow more concerned about their privacy. I really think that's happening. Maybe in a few years, people will be like, I don't care, show me my cat pictures, and then Society 2 will be a niche product. But I really believe that people are more and more growing aware of what they're giving away for free and how it's being used against them.
Yeah. And then you have Ryan Fundorp. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. He's asking you, are you open to using the rights to earn money from your own social media data as part of marketing strategy for this, like your adoption strategy, essentially? He says that he's talked to many Facebook contenders that would be incentivized by this.
Understood. Are you open to using the right to earn money from social data? As absolutely. Well, see, yeah, I get I get the point you're getting at, because I've been selling the fact that our central value proposition is your privacy. But what you're saying, Ryan, is, hey, you're telling people that they can make money, like off of getting ads served to them, like the Brave browser, or that the ad revenue is shared with the people running the nodes. So, like on Reddit, people who are moderating the subreddits, they're not getting paid for that. Reddit is. In this scenario, they would be paid for that effort. So yeah, absolutely. As a sales pitch, thank you. Excellent tip.
Yep. Then you have Dennis, another veteran of the community. He's just asking, Maybe I didn't hear it, but how do you store pictures or videos? Who are the main drivers of social media? I guess this is kind of a question to both of us, but yeah, you can take it first and then I will add something.
Dennis, I'm very familiar with your project Scally. Maybe I should use your offering because, Freighter, because that's exactly what we need for that type of content. And you're already aware of the IPFS angles and all that, but all I can say in answer to your question is let's talk.
Yeah, no, I think Friday is a very good potential tool for this. So I would just say the same thing or echo your sentiment that you guys should definitely talk. TFMC, hi Ben, do you think that privacy and decentralization are enough incentive to get people on board? I mean, we've already talked about this quite a bit and I don't want to go forever. Do you have like a quick comment that you just want to reiterate? I think you've already gone over it like a couple of times.
It's about our digital identities being very attached to ourselves. It's our lives. We should control it.
Yeah. Yeah, he asked the same question again. Let me just see. I see Mark is getting hit by someone.
Mark is always getting beat up.
Yeah, so where is Dennis again is asking the same question. Let's skip that because we don't want this to go over 2 hours. Yuknon is essentially just saying that he supports it and he understands that the rewards will trigger adoption. For self-esteem or a tip, that's what people are searching for, and I completely agree. I think that there's a lot of creative ways you can use color tokens, for instance, to build up reputation and status, which is what human beings care about.
Absolutely. I want to be a little coy because we've already talked about that extensively on our own private Discord about how to use colored coins. There's a lot of stuff that I'm not talking about here. I just don't want to talk about yet because there's so many great ancillary revenue streams.
Yep. So I will go to the last two ones. Gold Animal is asking, how do you prevent censorship on this platform? How do you stop terrorists from using this platform? And I completely agree. This is a very good point because it isn't that long ago that ISIS was using Twitter very efficiently to recruit lost people into their lost cause. And it's yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And you kind of touch upon it, but I will let you.
Yeah. Again, it's a continuum. So when you run a node, you're responsible for its moderation, and how you want to moderate is completely up to you. And the central question is one of quality. You want to create an environment that people want to visit. And so you want to get rid of the noise and you want to attract attention. So you don't want to censor too much because people are going to be driven away. They're like, this is a stilted, uninteresting conversation. And if somebody says a little thing a little off, they're kicked out like they did something awful. And then on the other end, you have people who are like 4chan are just going to post all sorts of nonsense. And it's up to you, the person running a node, to moderate that. And if you do not moderate that, hey, hello, law enforcement.
Yeah. And I think Bill TFMRK is asking along the same lines. Facebook already struggles with removing illegal content. Would individual node operators be able to afford reviews engineering legal to keep up with removing such content?
Very good point. And another point related to that is some of the people who review that content, they get like PTSD from looking at that stuff all day long. It's absolutely awful. The idea is if you run a node and it's large enough and this becomes large enough problem, you should be making enough money from all your ancillary streams and from your ad revenue that you will be able to hire people to handle it. That's the hope. That's the dream. Of course, it has to be tweaked, but that's the central idea.
Yeah. And then Dennis comes with another question. Why not use a soft token for reputation like Mana is being used for building up reputation and trust in the node?
Dennis?
Or is that something?
No, because he's right in the conversations we're having internally on Society 2 and Discord. Right now, the idea that we're selling is that your reputation, your score is local to a node. But how do we transport that to other nodes if necessary, if possible, and if that's appealing? So yes, that where you're dead on to our internal conversations right now.
Yeah, Dennis, please reach out to Ben.
Yes.
That's pretty much the summary of that. So that's the last question that is right here, right now, and we are entering upon 2 hours very soon. So I think we should end it here so other people can enjoy it on YouTube. Hey, Terry.
Hey,
Here's
Terry.
one more for you, Terry.
thank you. No, it's a can. I'm only looking for cups.
Okay, that's next. Next.
Okay, so personally, I just want to thank Daniel from IEN and Rick.
Yes,
To
Thank you, Daniel.
Daniel has been amazing.
completely amazing. You should join the chat now. There you are. So yeah, personally, I just want to thank all of you actually for the opportunity to host this. It was really interesting, and of course, I'm super excited about both the projects. And yeah, just invite me in the future. I will definitely show up and play host again, even though I have no clue what I'm doing. I'll do it.
David, you're a great MC.
You did a great job.
Okay. So
Thank you.
thank you for everyone watching this. Thanks for your participation in the questions or just watching it in general, and hopefully sparking some interesting conversations. And yeah, let's go through Terry first. How can people who have been touched by your presentation, how can they reach out to you, potentially assist in making this a reality?
Thank you. Really, visit us at the Biotasphere. You can reach me on Discord, in the IOTA Discord. I'm on there frequently. Terry at biotasphere.com. You can reach me directly. We will be posting resources, links, and other items on the website in the next week or so. So there will be resources there. But if anybody is interested in participating, is in the industry, knows people in the industry, knows people in government, really, no matter where they are on the planet, preferably in North America, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk to you, and we'd like to make a difference. So thank you for watching and participating.
Yeah, and the same question for you, Ben. We kind of ended it on the note that Dennis, who is kind of asking the questions that you're going through right now, he will contact you. But if anyone else that is watching this, or people with interest for privacy and social media, decentralized social media, how do they reach you? How can they potentially contribute and join the Society2 project?
Society2.com. Reach out to us there. There's a form right on the front page. Joseph, Marcus, and I, we'd love to talk to you. And like Terry, I can be found in the Discord, and that's probably we'll be talking to Dennis soon.
Cool.
Perfect.
And just before we go, I have one last thing, David. I just want to thank you and all of the unsung heroes at the IOTA Foundation for all of your hard work. I think 2020 is going to be the year of IOTA. There are some incredibly exciting things on the horizon, and more that we have no clue about that I can't wait to hear. So thank you for all your work, for all of your persistence in the face of sometimes overwhelming and just plain stupid obstacles, and just keep doing what you're doing. We're really, really excited about what the future holds.
Yeah, and anyone who's new to IOTA, who's listening, follow the news. There are some amazing things happening.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Yep. So forget CNN. There's much more interesting and useful stuff happening right here.
Yeah, no, for sure. First of all, I want to thank you, and I definitely just, on behalf of the IOTA Foundation, I can tell you, even though this is probably the most exciting time to be in the IOTA Foundation because of all of the things that are happening currently with Hornet and Chrysalis coming up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to take this opportunity to also say on behalf of the entire IOTA Foundation that we are extremely happy that we have the IOTA community. Like, this is a synergistic effort. It's a symbiosis. IOTA would not be where it is without the IOTA community. So I'm extremely thankful, and I know the rest of the IOTA Foundation is as well, that we have this. Still, IOTA is completely grassroots originated and continues to be that, and it will be that forever. So I want to thank everyone that is watching and participating in the community, as well as the two of you, of course, and also Daniel. I really want to thank you for all that you've done in IEN. It's yeah, like Terry said, you're really one of the unsung heroes, I think.
Okay,
So,
thanks. You actually were a very good host, so you should consider to repeat this.
no, like any time in the future, anytime it makes sense, just invite me and I will join.
Okay,
Cool.
great.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.